Okay, so the topic of this presentation is going to be the genetic inheritance pattern known as sex-linked inheritance. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, well let's first look at how is sex determined in the first place. Here we have a karyotype, and if you recall, a karyotype is a picture of a person's chromosomes. And like the notes say, a person's sex or a person's gender is determined by genes that are found on the X and the Y chromosome. This is a karyotype of a woman. That's why you only see two X chromosomes where chromosome 23 is located. We'll look at a male karyotype in just a moment. But women, you only have the XX chromosome combination, and so because you have the XX chromosome combination, in all of your egg cells, no matter what, there's going to be an X chromosome. You're not going to find you're not going to have egg cells with a Y chromosome in it. Women do not possess Y chromosomes. So women, no matter what, your egg cells are going to have an X chromosome in them. It's not like that for guys, though. Let's look at guys next. Here's a picture of a male karyotype, and you can see males, we have two different chromosome 23s. We have an X chromosome that you see flashing right now. So males, when we produce sperm cells, 50% of our sperm cells will contain an X chromosome, and the other 50% of our sperm cells will contain a Y chromosome. So it depends on the sperm cell that fertilizes the egg. If a sperm cell with a Y chromosome fertilizes the egg, the baby's going to be a male. If a sperm cell with an X fertilizes the egg, the baby's going to be a female. So mathematically, I want to prove to you that there is a 50-50 chance of a child being born a boy or a girl if we use the sex chromosomes like a Punnett square. I just put the XX female sex chromosomes on top, the XY male chromosomes on the side. If we treat a Punnett square, if we treat the X and Y chromosomes like we see in the Punnett square, and then we fill in the Punnett square, you can mathematically see there's a 2 out of 4 chance that a person will be born with the XX chromosome combination. That would be a girl. There's a 2 out of 4 chance that a person will be born with an XY chromosome combination. That would be a boy. So there you go, 50-50 chance of a child being born a boy or a girl. Okay, now I want to get into what are sex-linked disorders. And like the notes say, they are inherited disorders, inherited conditions that are usually found on the X chromosome. Yes, there are some sex-linked disorders that are found on the Y chromosome. This video, however, is not going to discuss those. This video is going to focus on chromosome disorders found on the X chromosome because they're just more prevalent, they're just more common. One thing I want to mention is that sex-linked disorders are usually recessive. Again, yes, there are some that are dominant. This video is not going to focus on dominant sex-linked disorders because they're fairly rare. Notice the key that just popped up in the bottom right-hand corner. I have an X with a capital H. The reason for that means the X, because again, we're focusing on the X chromosome. The capital H means that there's a healthy dominant gene on that X chromosome. The X with the lowercase h, the X means chromosome 23, the X chromosome. The lowercase h means that the gene on the X chromosome is recessive. Remember, lowercase means recessive. So watch this. When we focus on a woman's chromosomes, remember women have 2 X chromosomes. Well, there's a few different combinations that a woman might inherit. She might inherit 2 X's with capital H's. If that's the case, she's going to obviously be healthy. If she only has the capital H's on her X chromosomes, capital H, according to our key, means healthy. She might inherit one of each, one capital H on one of her X chromosomes and a lowercase h on her other X chromosome. If that's the case, she's still going to be healthy because healthy is dominant. One thing I want to mention is that this woman would be considered a carrier. She's a carrier because she carries the gene for these disorders on one of her X chromosomes. And then there's the third possible combination, and this is how a woman can have the disease. It's rare, but it happens. A woman needs to inherit not one X chromosome with the lowercase h gene on it, but also two X chromosomes, each of them with the lowercase h on them. When we focus our attention to males, we have the XY chromosome combination. Males are a bit easier. We either have the X with the capital H. If that's the case, we're healthy. Or we have the X with the lowercase h. And if that's the case, we're going to have the disease. You might be asking yourself, well, how come you didn't put anything on the Y chromosome? How come there's no H's on the Y chromosome? Because again, these gene disorders are typically found on the X chromosome. So yes, guys, we do have a Y chromosome. That doesn't really provide us any backup. So we're really only focusing our attention on the X chromosome. I want to mention that sex-linked disorders are much more common in males. They're very rare in women, and I hope you see why. Women, it's twice as unlikely for you to have these disorders. In order for a woman to have a sex-linked disorder, she has to inherit not one X chromosome with the lowercase h, but two. It's twice as unlikely to happen. Women, you have a backup X chromosome. Guys, we're not so lucky. We only have one X chromosome. If our only X chromosome has a disorder, we're going to have the disorder. If I can focus on quickly on a few examples of sex-linked disorders, here's an X chromosome blinking. Let's zoom on into an X chromosome. And when we zoom on into an X chromosome, for instance, the gene that causes colorblindness. Colorblindness is a sex-linked disorder. It almost always affects men. Very rarely are women colorblind. And you can see the gene is located near the bottom of the X chromosome. Also near the bottom of the X chromosome is the gene that causes hemophilia. Again, hemophiliacs are almost always male. It's very rare for a woman to be a hemophiliac. The gene that causes hemophilia is also located near the bottom of the X chromosome. Well, located near the top of the X chromosome is a gene that causes a form of muscular dystrophy here. And again, this type of muscular dystrophy, because it's sex-linked, it's almost always going to affect males. And again, I hope you remember why. Males, we don't have a backup X chromosome. So if our only X chromosome has a defect, we're going to have a defect. Women, you do have a backup X chromosome. So if one of your X chromosomes has a defect, your other X chromosome is most likely fine, and therefore you'll be fine. So I just mentioned colorblindness as an example of a sex-linked disorder. Well, here's a neat little picture. On top, you can see the spectrum, the color spectrum that a normal person with normal vision has. About 92% of the population has normal color vision. Then you start going down the list, and you can see the percentage of people that have a certain type of color blindness and what the color spectrum looks like to them. This is kind of neat when we look at a rainbow flag. Let's look at that really quick. So here's an example of a rainbow flag on what a normal person can see. However, if you have a color blindness, and I hope I don't pronounce this wrong, called deuteranopia, about 2.7% of the population has this form of color blindness. This is what the rainbow flag looks like to them. Again, let's go back to our normal rainbow flag. There is another type of color blindness called protanopia. It doesn't affect a very large percent of the population, only 0.59% of the population, but this is what that same rainbow flag looks like to them. One more example. If we go back to our normal rainbow flag and we look at what a type of color blindness called tritanopia. Again, a very small percent of the population is affected by this type of color blindness, but you can see what that same rainbow flag looks like to them. Again, one of the myths is that people who are colorblind see in black and white, and that's not true. They still see in color, it's just their colors are shifted a bit. Here's a little quick thing that you can do. There's all kinds of examples of colorblind tests, and so here's a colorblind test. There's a number inside of the picture. Can you see the number 53 in the picture? How about there's a number inside of that picture? Can you see the number 12? How about this one? There's a number inside that picture. Can you see the number 6? How about this one? There's a number, now they're a little harder, I thought. A number inside of this picture. Can you see the number 74? And my last one for you. So here's the last one. Can you see inside of this the number 6? By the way, if you can't see one of the numbers, it doesn't mean you're colorblind. There's a whole series of colorblind tests. These are just a few from that series. Okay, so if we were in class, I would give you guys a minute to try to answer these questions right here. So pause the video, and try to work out this very quick family, Jen and Adam. Try to work out this real quick family. Try to do a Punnett Square and answer these questions. I'm going to go over the answers in 3, 2, 1. So first of all, the story tells me that Jen is a healthy carrier of hemophilia. So I'm going to put Jen on the outside of the Punnett Square like I just did. And it says Adam has no history of hemophilia in his family. So he's got to be healthy if he's got no history of it. So there you go. I labeled Adam in the outside of the Punnett Square. Well, now like we've done with Punnett Squares, I simply just fill in the Punnett Squares. There's the top right, there's the bottom left, there's the bottom right. Now that I filled in the Punnett Squares, you know, it might be helpful to label inside of the Punnett Square the phenotype. Top left, I have the phenotype of a healthy girl. The XX means it's a girl. The 2 capital H's means that she has normal, she's not a hemophiliac. She's healthy. The top right-hand corner, I have an XY combination. That means it's a boy. The capital H tells me that the boy is healthy, does not have hemophilia. The bottom left, I know it's a girl because she has 2 X chromosomes, and I know the girl's healthy because she has a capital H, but she also has a lowercase h. That makes her a carrier. She's healthy, but she carries the gene for hemophilia on one of her X chromosomes. And finally, the lower right-hand square, it's a boy. I know that because of the X and Y combination. But this boy is a hemophiliac because of the lowercase h. This boy has an X chromosome with the gene for hemophilia on it. So now that I've done the Punnett Square, question A, what is the probability of having a daughter with hemophilia? Hope you can see the answer is 0. There are no squares that will give me a girl with hemophilia. Question B, the chances of having a child who's a carrier. I hope you see that there's a 25% chance of that. 1 out of 4 is 25%. Question C, a child with hemophilia. I hope you also see the answer is 25%. You can see that there's that hemophiliac boy in the lower right-hand corner. Question D, this one might be confusing at first. You might think the answer is 75% because you can see 3 out of 4 squares are healthy, but that's not the answer. The answer is actually 9 out of 16 or 56%. And let me show you why. What's the chances of having not one healthy child? If it was one healthy child, the answer would be 3 out of 4. But the question's saying, what's the chance of having 2 healthy child? Well, here's 2 healthy children. Pretend the child on the left was born in 2010, and pretend the child on the right was born in 2013. In 2010, that first child had a 3 out of 4 chance of being healthy, just like the Punnett Square above shows me. A couple of years go by, mom and dad want to have a second child. In 2013, what's the odds that that child is healthy? Again, 3 out of 4. You can see that in the Punnett Square above. 3 squares out of 4 are healthy. But when you combine the odds, you have to multiply the 2 together. We're not asking what's the chances of one child being healthy. We're asking what were the odds that both of them combined would be healthy. So 3 times 3 in the numerator is 9. 4 times 4 in the denominator is 16. So there's how you got your answer. Okay, here's a harder story problem. This one's harder because I'm going to ask you to draw a pedigree and also do a Punnett Square. It says hemophilia is a sex-linked disorder. Kelly does not have hemophilia even though her mother did. Jim, who's Kelly's husband, is a hemophiliac. Their first child, Barry, is healthy, but their other child, Rachel, is a hemophiliac. Draw a pedigree for this family and a Punnett Square for Jim and Kelly. If you're doing this at home, pause the video. I'm going to start going over this in 3, 2, 1. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a circle for Kelly. Remember, circle are women. Notice how Kelly is not colored in. If a circle or a square is not colored in, that tells me that they're healthy. The story says that Kelly does not have hemophilia. But it also says her mother did. So notice I have a circle for Kelly's mother, and I colored in that circle. Remember in my previous video on pedigrees, anytime you see a circle or square colored in, that tells you that the person has the disease. The story says Kelly's mother is a hemophiliac, so I colored her in. Kelly is married to a man named Jim. So a square means a male, a circle means a female, so a square for Jim. But notice how I colored in Jim, because the story says that Jim is a hemophiliac. They have a child. They have two children. Their first child, Barry. I think the name Barry implies a male's name, so there's a square for Barry. Notice Barry's square is not colored in because the story says their first child, Barry, is healthy. But the story also says they have a girl by the name of Rachel, a circle for Rachel, and notice I colored in Rachel because the story says Rachel is a hemophiliac. So now that I've drawn the pedigree, I want to try to label the genotype of everyone. I'm going to start with Kelly's mother. She's a woman, so I'm going to use the X and X chromosome combination. And because the mother, Kelly's mother, has the disease, she has to be lowercase h, lowercase h. That's the only combination for a woman to have the disease. Even though it's rare, you can see it can happen. Next, I'm going to go to Jim. Jim is a male. He's a square right there, so I'm going to give him the X and Y chromosome combination. But because his square is colored in, I'm going to give him the lowercase h. That's the only way for him to have the disease. Moving on to Rachel. It's a girl. X and X is the chromosome combination, and again, just like Kelly's mother, Rachel has to be has to be colored in, so she's a hemophiliac. She has to have the two lowercase h's. So even though this is rare for women to be hemophiliacs, it can happen. Now I want to shift my attention to Barry. Barry is a square. I'm going to give him an X and Y combination, but notice how the X has a capital H. Barry is not colored in. Barry's healthy. I'm going to give him the capital H for healthy. When it comes to Kelly, I know she's healthy. The story says she does not have hemophilia. So I'm going to give her an X with one capital H for now. In a moment, I'm going to figure out her other X, but I know for now that she's healthy. So when it comes to Kelly's other X chromosome, is it a capital H or is it a lowercase h? There's two ways I can figure this out. Look at Kelly's mother. Kelly's mother only has X's with lowercase h's. Therefore, Kelly's mother is going to pass on an X with a lowercase h. There's another way you can figure out Kelly. Look at Kelly's daughter, Rachel. Rachel has two X's with lowercase h's. One of those had to come from Dad, Jim. The other one had to come from Mom, Kelly. Well, now let's shift our attention to drawing a Punnett square. Okay, now that we're done with the pedigree, let's focus on a Punnett square. I know there's the X and the Y for Jim, and I know there's the X and the X for Kelly. I know Jim and Kelly now, so I can do a Punnett square for them. Top left, I'm going to fill in the Punnett square. Top right, I'm going to fill in the Punnett square. Bottom left and bottom right. Well, just like I did in the previous example, I think it's really helpful to label the phenotype inside the Punnett square. In the top left, I see X and X for a girl, and I see a capital H. Even though there's only one capital H, I know she's healthy. You can see I labeled this top left square as being a carrier because she carries the lowercase h. Top right of the Punnett square, X and Y, that implies a boy. The capital H means that boy is going to be healthy. Bottom left of the Punnett square, X and X means it's a girl, but there's only lowercase h's, therefore the girl's going to be a hemophiliac. Bottom right of the Punnett square, X and Y, that means it's a boy, but the lowercase h means that boy is going to be a hemophiliac. So now we answer questions A, B, C, and D. Question A, what's the probability of getting a healthy son? From the Punnett square, you can see that there's a 1 out of 4 chance, 25%, of having a boy who's healthy. Question B, what's the chances of having a healthy daughter? You can also see a 1 out of 4 chance. Even though that square I just highlighted is a carrier, she's still healthy. She does not have the disease hemophilia. She's just a carrier. Question C, what's the chance of having a child with hemophilia? That would be 50-50. Child implies boy or girl. I just highlighted the two squares. One of them on the left is a girl, one of them on the right is a boy. 2 out of 4 is a 50% answer. Question D, what's the chances of a child being a carrier? I hope you can see there's the 1 out of 4 again for 25%. So there's a great example of a Punnett square and a pedigree done together. Okay, so here's the final task. Here we have a pedigree involving 14 people. I want you to try to figure out the genotype for as many people as you can. There's a hint in the lower left-hand corner. Of the 14 people, you're going to be able to determine 13. I'm not going to tell you who's the one person that's unknown. Try to solve this. Pause the video. I'm going to start going over the answers in 3, 2, 1. So the first thing you might want to try is focus your attention on the males. I think the males are easy. The males are either going to be X capital H and a Y or X lowercase h and a Y. So male number 5, male number 13, male number 14, they have to be the X with the lowercase h because they're colored in. They have the disease. All the other males have to be the opposite, have to be the X with a capital H, number 1, number 3, and number 7, and number 8, and number 10, and number 11. They're not colored in. That tells me they're healthy, and if they're healthy, they have to be X with a capital H. So look at that. We already got, I think, about 8 or 9 people figured out. Well, now we need to shift our attention to the women. The women are a bit harder. So when we shift our attention to the women, there's 3 possible combinations. All of these women are one of these 3. Now, I can cross off the X lowercase h, X lowercase h. None of the women are that combination, and I know that because none of the women are colored in gray. All of the women are left white. That means that they're healthy. I just have to figure out what version of healthy. Are they homozygous dominant? Or are they heterozygous? Well, you know, I'm going to go ahead and start giving every woman one X with a capital H. Every woman's healthy, so I can at least get started by giving her one X with a capital H. I know they're healthy. Now I have to figure out what is their second X chromosome. So first of all, let's look at woman number 2. And let's look at the boy that she had. Person number 5 is going to be the clue to figuring out woman number 2. Person number 5 is a boy, and he has a Y chromosome that he must have inherited from his father. Boys get their Y chromosomes from their father. Therefore, the X chromosome had to come from the mother. So there we have one of our persons has now been discovered. Person number 2 must have passed an X with a lowercase h to boy number 5. So person number 2 has to be heterozygous. Well, let's see if we can use that pattern to solve other people. Next person I want to focus on is person number 13. Person number 13 is a boy, and he got that Y chromosome from his father. So if person 13 got the Y chromosome from the father, then person 13 must have gotten that X chromosome from the mother. That X chromosome has a lowercase h. It had to come from woman number 6. Woman number 6 must have given person 13 an X with a lowercase h. We've now solved another woman. So there you go. We've solved 2 women, and we have a couple more. We have 3 more women to go. The next person I want you to focus your attention on is person number 14. It's a boy, person 14 is a male, and the pattern that we saw previously is going to work for us. This person, number 14, is a boy, therefore he must have gotten that Y chromosome from his father. If he got the Y chromosome from the father, then he must have gotten his X chromosome from his mother. His mother happens to be woman number 9. So you can see the boy in number 14 has an X with the lowercase h, and now we know who it came from. It came from woman number 9. So I now know that woman number 9 is heterozygous, even though the story never told me that. Well, who can we focus on next? Okay, so next I'd like you to focus on woman number 9. Well, woman number 9 has an X chromosome with a capital H. She must have received that from her dad. Her dad is man number 3. Clearly, man number 3, her dad, passed his X chromosome. If male number 3 passed the Y chromosome, then person 9 wouldn't be a girl, person 9 would be a boy. Because person 9 is a girl, I know that she received the X chromosome from her dad. So if she got the X with the capital H from the dad, that means she got the other X chromosome with the lowercase h from her mother. So person number 9 has an X with a lowercase h. She didn't get it from the dad because dad doesn't have a lowercase h. Clearly, woman number 9 got the X chromosome with the lowercase h from her mother. So there we go. We've just figured out woman number 4. Woman number 4 has to be heterozygous. So when we focus on the last person, person number 12, woman number 12, she has an X chromosome. She must have received that X chromosome from her father. Clearly, person 3, the father, never gave her a Y chromosome or she'd be a boy. So if she got that X chromosome from the father, the problem is, what did the mother pass? Did the mother pass the X with the capital H, or did the mother pass the X with the lowercase h? We just don't know. I know she got an X chromosome from the mother, I just don't know which one. So there's the one person that we just can't figure out. So I hope that helped. Okay, if you're in my biology class, go ahead and pause the video and try to answer these questions. If you're in my class, bring your answers on a separate sheet of paper. I'd be happy to check them for accuracy. Good luck.